Now, this shooting happened in October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
And it's bringing attention to domestic violence and local advocacy efforts to end it. Your reporter Taylor Knight is live in Waterbury with the warning signs you should know.
Well, a neighbor on Beverly Avenue had told police that he saw a man and a woman arguing on the front lawn of their home just hours before that shooting. Prosecutors are saying that that argument had to deal with money, and that is what led to the suspect shooting and killing his parents. Domestic violence prevention advocates are now raising awareness of the potential warning signs. According to advocacy groups, some warning signs to look out for include less confidence and being quieter than usual, seeing friends and family less often or not at all, or they talk about their partner or family member's bad temper or jealousy. If you're worried about someone, you should check in on them regularly. Help is always available by calling the Domestic Violence Awareness Hotline. And if you're worried about your own safety or someone else's, call the police. Police here in Waterbury will be meeting with advocacy groups to get a better understanding of domestic violence and learn how to prevent it from happening in the future. Your reporter live in Waterbury, Taylor Knight, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.